What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to break down the Scream 7 trailer. We're going to be going over pretty much every single frame of this thing, going over all my theories, all that speculation. Phenomenal trailer, and really a trailer that I think actually plays it quite safe, right? There's a lot going on in this movie. There's a lot of returning characters through AI or whatever other means they want to do, and they played it very conservatively with showing them off, and you could argue maybe you want them to lean on Stu a little bit more. They didn't do it seemingly at all, except for, of course, the ending we'll talk about, but I actually thought it was a very good trailer, while at the same time being a very, very safe trailer and keeping things spoiler-free, which is not what 5 did. 5 spoiled pretty much the whole thing, and 6 did a pretty darn good job. So before I go over frame by frame, a couple things to point out. One, we got the official synopsis, which is when a new Ghostface killer emerges in a quiet town where Sidney Prescott has built a new life, her darkest fears are realized as her daughter, Isabel May, becomes the next target. Determined to protect her family, Sidney must face the horrors of her past to put an end to the bloodshed once and for all. The other big thing to note is Kevin Williamson now has writing credits he previously did not have, based on characters created by him. Story, obviously, is by James and Guy, but screenplay by Kevin Williamson and Guy Busick. So between a year ago and now, because when it was first announced, he was not listed as a writer or of any kind. So, obviously Kevin Williamson hopefully had a lot of power here, gets brought back as a director this time, right, formerly writer and creator, really, of Scream. And it seems like he probably got some influence, right? Probably got some say in that script, which I think is that's probably a good sign, to be honest with you. And the only other thing I want to talk about is what wasn't in the trailer. So, I mentioned, visually, we didn't see any of these returning ghost faces, right? Or even Dewey. Now, Dewey's voice is in this trailer. We'll point that out when we get to it. But notably, Anna Camp is not in this whatsoever, which is interesting because I've pegged her as a ghost face for a long time. I think a lot of people have. Asa Gurman, I think, is another one that probably stands out, notable, new name. There's a couple of them, but I would say those two stand out as they're not in the trailer whatsoever. So take that and run with it in whatever direction you want. Without further ado, let's go through this thing. Okay, so we're starting things off with Stu's house. Now, they call it the Psycho Killer B&B, right? It seemingly has been turned into some sort of attraction, right? And remember, we've seen this multiple times, most notably Amber and 5. This is the house that she lived in. So a couple things you almost immediately notice, right? You actually see the dead, the crime scene body prints on the floor. So that's a nice little detail right away. But then as soon as they start to show the iconic stairwell, you can actually see to your right the first thing, Stab. When the character played by Jimmy Tatro, I hope is his last name, I hope that's how you say it, when he's taking the picture of himself on the floor, you look kind of to his left, or our left, I guess, looking at him, the Woodsboro murders from Gale Weathers. So a couple different paraphernalias. Actually, if you look to the far right, you see Stab 2. There's a couple of them playing throughout it. Again, I'll try to point it out when we get to it. And then, of course, the big first fright, right, is seeing Ghostface, but it's an animatronic. Okay, so they start to mess around with it. I've seen some people saying that this Ghostface flinches. I've watched this 10 times. I can't seem to spot where it does that. I wouldn't be shocked if there's 2 Ghostfaces here in general. Then we have an interesting one when Michelle Randolph is looking at this Ghostface animatronic. Right to her background, we see Stab 5, and it's Ghostface cleaning off the knife. This was the ending of Scream 5. I actually used this for plenty of thumbnails, and this was, kind of the iconic, this was that flash, last shot thing to let you know that, a Scream 6 was coming. So they just, repurposed that image, named it Stab 5, and it's in the background. So, she's watching the Ghostface, and I've even tried to watch the animatronic. The animatronic does move with her, so I was just trying to see if there was anything off with it. But of course, to our left and behind her, you see actual Ghostface, right? So he sneaks up on her, and now things get kind of dicey in terms of the editing gets kind of dicey. The one thing, if you pause here, you see the chandelier behind him. You see him taking a stab to her. So that's clearly later, because then the next shot is him chasing her up the stairs, right? So we see up the stairs, she throws the lampshades or whatever, she rips it off the thing, whips it at Ghostface, and then next thing we know, we're tossing both of them off of that, top balcony. So this is one of those classic kind of misdirections. The first shot of like the knife stab, obviously doesn't, like, she has a bruise. You can see she actually has marks on the top of her face when she's hanging from the chandelier, but it doesn't show, I don't think she actually gets stabbed in that moment. Also, the boyfriend seemingly is gone at this moment. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a thing where they kind of separate, go explore the house. He's taken out kind of quietly and quickly, and then she's more of like the cat and mouse chase scene. You hear a phone ring when they first open the door, but this trailer, I think, plays around with like the phone's ringing, but they're answering it at a different time, right? Which they've done that multiple times in Scream 5, 6, 7 trailers. They try to mix and match, so you don't literally see the full conversation. So it is kind of cut up, but I imagine she's the second kill of this entire sequence. So Ghostface falls, hits his, and we've actually seen, I think, a couple of them. I believe Amber made this fall, and Sidney made this fall as like a 47-year-old woman. So, it's a dangerous fall, but it's not too dangerous, right? So Ghostface lands. She is kind of just balancing on the chandelier. Obviously doesn't make it. You get the one shot where she's trying to pull herself up, and you can see our left, her right, the side of her face, definitely, it honestly kind of looks like it was almost clawed up. Now, maybe it was like a knife swipe, or, maybe she got punched or something, got hit in the face. Again, this is obviously, I think, towards the tail end of the entire chase. By the way, for the most part, this trailer, again, played it very safe and didn't really spoil anything. I'm almost 100% sure this is her death, right? Because you're about to see she falls off, she's about to slip, falls, and then Ghostface, and you can see it kind of coming, because as she's about to fall, or as she's falling, you see Ghostface actually roll over. And then the final shot of this sequence, he rolls over completely and sticks the knife up, and then you do hear like the kind of like death hit before it gets to like the Paramount and all the logos and stuff. So, her falling from that height into his knife, I feel like that's kind of the end of her story, and that probably is the end of that entire sequence, to be honest with you. So, not a huge fan of giving away the opening, but the opening could probably be 5, 6, 7 minutes. They gave away 32 seconds, so it's not the end of the world. Okay, now the next thing, because now we're fast forwarding, right? That was the cold open. Now we're getting into, okay, Ghostface is calling Sidney. She answers the phone. Now, a couple things what I try to do is I try to look at clothing, right? Clothing is probably a good way of isolating like where these characters are, okay? Now, this call, eventually she's going to hit record, but it also seems like she takes 2 different calls. So the way I'm kind of seeing it is there's going to be one call where it's more like playful, like more of the just opening where it's that classic like hello Sidney line, which I believe is actually the first line that Ghostface says. I think there's going to be a more playful one, and then there's going to be a more extreme one, because if you actually see, so she hits answer, right? And she hits audio, so it's on speaker. Now, when you get the first actual look of her, right, and you have like the window behind her, it seems like it's a more like dire, like she's more maybe not caught off guard, but she's definitely more in the zone. Okay, I think that's a good way of putting it. Now we're going to come back, because this is where they start to jump and split up scenes that I think is going to mess with people. So the first couple things, by the way, is hello Sidney, did you miss me? And you hear what sounds to be like when Ghostface presses the button to like do the voice changer. It definitely sounds like that. It's also probably the noise like when you take a picture and there's like that snap. So I think it's probably his voice modulator. But I like that touch. I like that opening line. And the thing is, like I said, I think that is going to be the opening line. Whenever the first Sidney phone call is, that's the opening line. And it's more playful. She's probably heard that 1,000 times. She'll probably play into that, right? Which I think we're going to see that as the trailer goes. So this one, I don't actually have, there's a couple questions I have. And of course, you guys can feel free to swoop in the comments anytime and let me know what you think. So this is a scene that I'm not exactly sure I can place. There's 2 scenes at the end of this trailer I can't exactly place. So I want your guys' crisis help if you're able to. So she's walking up, there's a lot of different reporters. She's walking next to an ambulance. Now, the only thing of note that I can tell is that she's wearing the outfit that we saw, because you can tell like you can tell her entire shirt color and pattern, but that was also on her sleeve when she hit answering the phone. So whatever that call was, I think was the serious one when she answers, like the one that the trailer just showed. That's, I think, a serious call, and then it leads her to actually have to go investigate something to almost like test the legitimacy of it, right? Like, is this Ghostface for real? Well, she gets there, there's been a death or an injury, all these people are there to talk to her, right? So I think that's probably when she realizes, oh shoot, this is real. And then we get some just nice little shots, small little streets here, like one small little thing, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's a nice one. Ghostface is talking about nice little town you found here. I guess the one thing of note here is he actually says you and your daughter. Technically, he says pretty daughter. The one thing I guess I would take there is, so like we know Sidney kind of lives remote, right? She's not going back to Woodsboro unless I think there's a reason to, but saying that in a phone call, well, where's her husband and where are the other kids, right? Because she has more than one. She probably has around 3 in all. The fact that he says that, I mean, they could be cutting stuff out. That's something that I want to make sure I throw out there. It could also just mean at that point, Sidney's isolated, right? Like maybe Mark has already told, or she's already told Mark, hey, take the kids, go into hiding. It'll just be, for whatever reason, it'll just be me and Tatum. There probably has to be a reason why Tatum stays behind and everybody else goes. Probably because there's a connection to Tatum almost as much as there is to Sidney. And then we get a nice little, actually we get 2 things back to back. So in terms of visuals, we see Tatum running up to, I believe, Celeste O'Connor and McKenna Grace. The one thing with McKenna Grace, you look at her outfit and the checkered like skirt that she's wearing, you think about checkered like plaid, I don't know what the official thing is, but you think back to, I believe, 4 different killers, including, I think, most notably, or most recently, Richie, right? Had like the checkered plaid short sleeve shirt. There's been, I believe, 4 of them that have had that pattern. That is kind of a more, I don't know, meta, not even necessarily meta. It's just a thing I think has happened, and maybe they kind of play into it because the fans pick that up. But, the color or the patterns on the outfit have been giveaways before. Jill was a massive one, right? So I don't know. There's been a couple of times that this has happened, 4 times, and she's pretty tiny. This would be almost like a Jenna Ortega thing where it's like, well, can they really be Ghostface? Can a girl that weighs 100 pounds soaking wet, could they do what this person is probably going to be doing throughout the movie? I don't know. So that's the big part visually, but I want to play you the audio because I think the audio is very important.
Reminds me of where we grew up.
So it reminds me of where we grew up. So that's the first big, like we're still actually only 53 seconds in, but like that's the first kind of main drop where it's like, all right, whether this person at this point is pretending to be Stu, right, through AI, or whether it's just a person connected to Sidney's past. Now, the thing is, I think no matter what, it is going to be a person connected to Sidney's past, right? But that's obviously very important, right? Reminds me of the town we grew up in. So clearly a person, like I said, I mean, it could at this point be a person that's trying to be Stu, and obviously like Stu grew up there, Sidney grew up there, so like it could be doing that, or it could just be, it could be Leslie Mocker, it could be, anybody else that just was around at the time, but obviously that was a very big moment. Now, it jumps the next thing, I mean, you see her keys, I don't know if that's a giveaway of anything in particular, but now, I mean, it's the same like Woodsboro, California, right? And that's what popped up originally. But now she's recording it, okay? And I think and she talks about like, well, so much about me, yada, yada, yada. And then you get another visual of her. Now, the thing is, she's wearing the same outfit that she was wearing at night next to the ambulance and when she hits, play on the phone the first time, okay? So I just feel, again, they're playing probably within the same day. I mean, she's doing paperwork. You see her coffee shop, which has been a rumor for a long time, and we know they filmed in like a coffee shop like type thing. So you see the name of it. But again, this one is much more playful, right? She's sitting down. She's kind of messing with him, like, a lot about me, all that jazz. This doesn't seem to be the same call, and I guess my question is, when she's recording, I mean, you actually do see her car keys right there, so when her keys are on the table and she's maybe hit record on the phone, she's maybe, I don't know why she's hitting record though when it's not like the biggest deal of all time. This one seems to be the playful one. There's probably another phone call that she answers maybe when she goes home that night, that is the more serious one, and that's when maybe a Ghostface attacks her home. And then we have a nice little Ghostface saying, "I'm not hiding, Sidney, not anymore." That's an interesting one just because of that line, and like, why are you not hiding anymore? I guess that probably ties to, like, connected to the past, right? This person has been hiding for a very long time. So, okay, we jump to Sidney's house. Now she's doing something. Can't actually tell. Maybe she's pouring coffee, but everything turns off. You actually get the first good look at her husband, Mark. He's in his gear, and you look at Sidney, again, importantly, she's wearing the same outfit, so this is probably all happening, like, the exact same day. And then those dang attics always get you, right? So we see that move. Now, I pause it here, like, when Ghostface is dropping down. I mean, this does, because sometimes, they'll maybe splice it where, like, this isn't actually him dropping down from the attic, but it definitely, while the lighting's not great, it definitely does look like the attic. So I think, this scene is probably played exactly how it looks. You see the thing being moved, you see Ghostface kind of dropping down, and then he actually drops down, in her hallway. Okay, then we see Ghostface running at her, kind of in a classic Ghostface-like stabbing motion. Sidney seems to hit him with the back or the end of a baseball bat, a metal baseball bat, so that probably really hurt. He flies back, and Sidney closes this unbelievable, like, bunker type situation. I kind of respect this, right? She's gone through a lot. She quite literally has a bunker, and actually, if you look to the left, she's also got cameras inside the bunker. So that's an interesting one. Now, what I find kind of weird about this, right? We're going to play a nice little, like, hide-and-seek game. We're going to stab through a wall. So Sidney and Tatum are crawling through, this in-between space thing, and this is pretty straightforward. They're trying to get through it. I think Tatum hits something, makes a noise, and then Ghostface just starts stabbing through the wall. Tense, and you wonder, pretty hard to not get hit in that situation. You have nowhere to really go forward and backwards. You can only go left and right. Ghostface just has to really stab as many times as possible in order to break through or hit you. The question I have, though, is if they're locked up in a very fortified bunker that's got cameras, is completely safe, why are they going through the house, like, through this little, through these duct type things? Unless maybe they're looking for Mark, maybe her other kids are still around the house. Like, you probably have to have a reason here why they would want to go through. Otherwise, this is kind of just played out just to be played out, right? But I'm going to assume there's a reason. But like I said, nice little scene. Not too much that can happen here. Ghostface taps the wall. I really like that. And then he just starts going to town, right, stabbing. You do have Tatum screaming "Mom," and the camera's looking at her. This is very hard, I would say, to, like, place in terms of timing. Is this I don't know, is this right before you have to imagine they're being very quiet before the stabbing starts. Really, I mean, this could be Tatum taking a hit. I don't know why she would scream "Mom" if that was the case. It is honestly probably more likely Sidney gets stabbed. Now, I don't know how close they're going to push her towards death in this movie. It's probably not going to be super, super close. Where could she get stabbed, that would have that kind of reaction? Must be serious, but maybe not super, super serious, right? But I don't know, just her screaming that indicates probably to me that Sidney is the one that got hit there and not Tatum. And then we have a nice line that I believe harkens back to Jill in Scream 4. We have Tatum saying, "I want to be a fighter like you." And then and now this is where we're going to start to go really, really quickly. We have Sidney busting down a door. I cannot tell where this is. She kind of has like a Scream 5 kind of vibe to her there. I don't know, very difficult to figure out, I believe, where that house is. If you guys have any ideas, you have Tatum running out of a Jeep, just kind of running out into a parking lot. Kind of in like the face that she's making looks as if she's like seeing something, so it could be a dead body, it could be her friend, could be her boyfriend, right? But something, not like spooking her, but it's like something is there, right, that kind of like gets that reaction from her. We also have Sidney saying, in terms of like voiceover, like, "You better not do anything to her." And then Ghostface says he's not going to do anything to her until Sidney is basically there to watch it play out. And then again, we're going back and forth, kind of voiceover and currently what's being played in front of us. These things are mix and match. They're not in sync with each other. We see Ghostface. I think this is kind of that infamous Ghostface chase outside of the coffee shop. We've seen some behind the scenes of this. This has been talked about quite. I'm going to imagine that's what it is, just because if you look in the background, you kind of see the seats. It looks like you could go in, like behind Ghostface to our right. You imagine that's like an entrance into a coffee shop. So not too much there. He does do the knife wipe thing, so that's kind of fun. And then you have Sidney turning around, and it's like the one thing I guess you could say here is Sidney turns around, and this is a different outfit. This is outfit number 2. We'll call the striped one outfit 1, this one outfit 2. You see like a light in the background. I don't know. This could be the same outfit she barged in that door with and kind of looked left and right, but that is pretty difficult, I think, to place in the grand scheme of things. Then we see Gale, comes in pretty late, a minute 34. We get our first shot of Gale. Lovely, by the way, really, really nice. And we get, of course, the red suit back. Oh, another thing to point out, I don't remember if it was a still or if it is actually in this trailer. Maybe I just skipped by it. Tatum looks to be wearing the outfit of Sidney's from Scream 2. A couple people spotted it on social media. I don't know if it's like the exact same like leather type jacket type situation, but it's definitely, I think for the movie purposes, it's supposed to kind of reflect the same thing. So that's pretty darn cool. So you see Gale, and actually you gotta pause it because it jumps rather fast. She jumps out pretty quick, but Chad in the back seat there, back left, he comes out as well. Doesn't do anything, in that moment. You have Gale talking about like, let's go catch this person. Now, of course, you have Gale looking to Sidney, and again, there's that striped shirt. So this has to be, I think, where that ambulance and Sidney comes and there's all the paparazzi. This has to be, I think, the exact same moment. All that happens, and then Gale comes with Chad and Mindy, and then they kind of have their talk, and that's kind of their reconnection point. Okay, now things jump pretty quickly. This is where even it stumps the good old Alex here. We have the lights flickering here with Chad and Mindy. Now, for the purposes of this, I'm also looking at their clothing because I don't know how much they're in the movie. I don't know how many costume changes they have. So also kind of important to place things, right? So you have the lights flickering. Then it kind of goes to flickering, but it's Ghostface. I'm going to imagine this is the same location. You see Celeste O'Connor's character underneath, the bar with Ghostface probably stalking above. And this is also very cool, I think. You have in the background Dewey's line. So I want to play that for you.
All your friends died for just being near you.
All your friends die for just being near you. Really nice. I watched this thing, I think, 4 times on my phone, and I couldn't tell who that was. I knew it wasn't Matthew Lillard, and it had a softer, kind of more gentle voice, and I was like, who the heck is this? And I checked in with a friend of the channel, and he confirmed it was Dewey. And then listening to it on like a speaker at my computer, you can pretty easily tell that is Dewey. Although I think if you're not looking for it, you might not be able to catch that. So that's the audio that's being played. Visually, we have Mindy slamming Ghostface with something. Could be a spatula, could be like a meat pounder type thing. Now, Ghostface shakes it off very, very easily. And by the way, love Mindy's like hair. Like, I really like what she's doing just with her outfit. By the way, with the outfit though, so this is the same moment. You see the yellow shirt with kind of the jacket over it. This is the same thing. So when they're sitting and those lights are flickering, this is maybe like within 2 to 5 minutes afterwards. And by the way, I mean, like Ghostface definitely looks like he's about to pounce in that situation. Now this one's kind of tough. You see Chad, and man, I'm really trying to place like, it looks like his undershirt, or like the shirt, he's got the jacket over it. It looks also to be the same thing. So like this is also in those same moments. Now he's looking down, he looks up, and that's kind of it, right? He looks down, looks up, looks kind of like he's, I don't know, like gasping for air maybe isn't the best description to it, but like clearly he's seeing something, or he saw something that's quite alarming. Now the issue is this could really be 2 different things, because Mindy is probably in some deep trouble, right? Facing off against Ghostface one-on-one, hits him, but Ghostface bounces back so quickly, that's probably not going to end perfectly, right? So it could be Mindy, but then we actually get Mark back into the swing of things, right? So we see Mark, he actually, and I think it's actually important to point out, so you see him kneeling, right? And he's got the eye stitch thing, and you see Ghostface behind him, okay? But then he's walking, and then you have Ghostface tackling him through the plastic thing. He also still has that mark. So him kneeling is probably first, and then Ghostface tackling him is probably second. Now, this one, I don't want to declare him dead, but I also want to know what kind of trickery they're playing around with if he's not dead, because he gets tackled, and it's hard to say that's not him, right? Because he's clearly walking, and then Ghostface tackles him. Now, the plastic goes around him in the first shot, so the plastic is around him in the second shot. Now, he's on the ground. I think that's him. Man, I'm almost trying to do this in real time. He's on the ground. You can see him screaming. You can see his mouth open, and you actually see blood squirt. So I feel like he gets stabbed at least once, and then you see from kind of the camera is inside the plastic facing out against Ghostface, and you see Ghostface do like a legitimate stab, maybe even 2 stabs. I don't know, like that one, if there's anything this trailer could spoil, it's that. And we've talked about the idea of like Mark dying or not dying. I don't know like how you get out of that situation, especially when you kind of freeze frame it like this. You know it's him walking. Like you could say, well, maybe it's somebody else that gets tackled in that plastic, but you know it's him walking. You know the plastic kind of wraps around him, and you know it lands. And I don't know, like it definitely looks like him underneath the plastic. So I'm not sure what happens. Well, actually, I mean, you could take an educated guess as to what happens, but I'm not sure. And then you have a very pissed off Sidney saying, "Where is my daughter?" Now this looks to be, well, it's definitely inside a house. Maybe it's inside her house. This kind of gives the vibes of the final act, the third act, because, and in fact, you see the necklace around her neck, and you see her outfit. So this was that same one that I was kind of confused on earlier. So this is, I really think this is probably towards the end, and she is asking, where is my daughter? It could be a situation where Ghostface captures Tatum, and this is kind of that final resolution. Now, I've watched this 7, 8, 9 times, and what I actually just found on this final time watching it as I'm recording this video, so you hear Tatum yelling "Mom" again. It sounds exactly like when she yells it when they're inside that trapped, thing in the wall. But you get a new shot this time. So you hear the same sound. So I think they're playing around with kind of like who's in jeopardy. But you do see Tatum kneeling, and she's got the gun, and she seems very like caught off guard. Not sure where to place that. The paper on the wall, like it could be Sidney's office. I have to maybe recheck again, like when she answers the phone and she's sitting at her desk, if those papers were there. But she's clearly caught in a weird situation, there. Then, of course, you have a little bit more of a played out thing. Not too much actually to say about this one. We have Sidney watching through the cameras, Ghostface going after Tatum. I think it's the first time you hear her name, Tatum. Up until this point, it's just your daughter, but now you actually hear Sidney say it. And not too much here. You just have kind of a cat and mouse chase. Sidney's going to walk her through the situation. And you know what? Now that we're watching this and we're seeing these shots, this looks to be the same thing. So I think when Tatum grabs the gun and is kneeling down and is kind of caught off guard, I think that's where Ghostface is going to kind of shock her that he's there, and then Sidney's not there, so Sidney has to walk her through it. So I think they just kind of spliced it a little bit where that is the beginning of the sequence, but I honestly think that's where we can place it in the timeline. So she takes the shots. Of course, Ghostface is kind of invincible. 3-4 shots to the chest is not good enough. Tatum goes, says that he's dead. Of course, Sidney says you have to shoot him in the head. He's not dead. And then now a couple things happen here that I'm not really sure about, so you guys can let me know. So Ghostface pops out, okay, and then immediately switches scenes. Now we're back to Celeste O'Connor getting tackled by Ghostface. I don't see a knife, so that's just one kind of thing in terms of like her maybe getting out scot-free is a little nice there. Now, I'm not sure what this scene is right here. I think that's Tatum based off of that jacket. We haven't seen anybody else wearing that like winter coat like thing. It looks like Ghostface gets pushed through a window, and I really think, it's either McKenna Grace or it's Tatum. Because I don't know, you see the heavy blonde hair, but at the same time, I really do think that jacket is Tatum. So I'm not sure where this plays in the timeline. Tatum is a very strong girl, being able to push Ghostface through, a glass panel like that. Okay, and now, so I think I figured that one out. I'm willing to say that's Tatum pushing Ghostface. I don't know who this is. Okay, so we have a person who's bleeding pretty severely and is being dragged. I think we can rule out like Mindy Chad. I think we can also probably rule out McKenna Grace and also probably Tatum. It can only be a few people, but I can't. Maybe I'm blind. Maybe I'm literally blind. I don't know who that is. They're wearing, like, you can see the pants with the belt. I think it's a male, and I don't know if it's like the boyfriend in the beginning, like maybe back at Stu's house. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to look. Maybe that's Stu's living room in the background there. That's the one. And there might actually be a body back there. Is there a body? Yeah, maybe right. You see that person laying down right there in the back? So this might be the opening. I don't really know what else to go off of there. If you guys know, maybe I'm missing something, or maybe this is one of those characters that I said we didn't see in the trailer and we actually do. I'm not entirely sure. And then, of course, we have kind of the epic ending. Now, it might be the opening, because right after that guy gets dragged, if it is a guy, we have Ghostface burning down Stu's house. Again, scenes are kind of split all over the place, but it could be lining up, in terms of a timeline again. So that's pretty much all of that. Of course, you have him saying, like, I'm going to burn it all down. I like that line quite a bit. You have Ghostface walking away, Stu's house literally on fire, so that's kind of fun. And then, of course, you have a very epic, you have literally a Stu line. This is very special. I really am happy that they did this.
This is gonna be fun.
So we hear, this is going to be fun. And then we see Ghostface jump out one last time, and there is actually blood on him. I imagine that's maybe just one of those kind of openings to a Scream movie. Stab, blood goes on you. We saw that, I believe, in Scream 6 most recently. So I don't know if you can read too much into that. But, of course, yeah, you get the Stu line. Like, that's freaking amazing that they actually did that. And, again, not really relying on Stu. You hear Dewey for maybe 5 seconds. You hear Stu for maybe, 2 seconds. You can definitely tell that's Matthew Lillard's voice, like, now doing it. The thing is, like, they're playing around with AI, so when they're recording these lines, you have to kind of play it almost a little bit off, where your voice might bounce a little bit and things are just a little bit kind of off with your voice. They can mess with it maybe later as well, right? But just I really like that. So there's the overall thing. Again, I don't think it gives too much away. Like, definitely Mark, there's some questions being raised there. They maybe show the final act in terms of Sidney saying, where's my daughter? But I really don't think we get a whole lot of Act 3 stuff. We don't even see her other kids. We don't see Anna Camp, which I think plays... She was one of the last people filming. So it's like she is definitely part of the third act. Again, I think she's a Ghostface. But even if she isn't, I think she makes it to the end. So, like, that's, I think, a big noticeable thing. And also just Roman is back. We didn't hear or see him. Stu has like a somewhat meaty role in this, so you hear him again for like 2 seconds. So there's a lot of this movie that I think they're dancing around, and I like that. I'll make another video talking about that, but I like that it plays it safe. I don't want it spoiled in the first trailer, right? So very, very long video. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.